Let's answer some questions. Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Black Magic Craft. I'm actually a little bit excited to do this video. It's something I've never done before, and it's a bit of a cop-out, but I think it's gonna be fun. Now, the reason I'm doing this is because next week, well, actually, for you watching this now, last week, which is next week to me, a little confusing, I'm gonna be out of town at Canada's National Ukrainian Festival. Which means that I will not be able to film a video, meaning that this week, now 2 weeks previous to you watching it, I have to film 2 videos, and there's no way I can film and edit 2 in-depth complicated videos in one weekend or one day, so I'm doing 2 smaller ones. And I thought it would be a good opportunity to just answer a bunch of random questions. You guys ask me lots of questions between YouTube comments, Facebook messages, questions on posts, whatever. I get asked 20, 30 questions a day, and I try to answer as many as I can. Some of them are repeated questions, and you know what? I think it would be fun to actually answer them on video. And some of them are the ones that you guys posted when I asked you to submit your questions for this video. So it's gonna be a mix of both, and I think it's gonna be a good time. There's a lot. There's like 30 that I've chosen. So I'm going to try to answer them swiftly, but with enough information to make it worthwhile. From the top, trees. What do you use to make your trees? Or how do you make your trees? Or what's the best method to make trees? So here's the thing. Trees for terrain and tabletop gaming are a lot of work to make look nice. They're a pain in the butt to make, and they take a lot of time. So this is one of those few projects where I adamantly believe that you are far better off spending a couple bucks on some pre-made trees. Now, you can look towards companies that make things for model railroads. I buy Woodland Scenics trees, and that's what I use. I modify them a bit, put them on better bases, maybe fix up some of the flocking. But the reality is, if you want a tree that looks that good, you can build it as cheaply, but it's gonna take a lot of time. And to me, time is valuable. This is one of those few cases where I say you're better off just spending the money on buying some prefab ones. Now, if you don't want to do that and you really want to make your own, there is a lot of resources out there for you to do that. If you just search it on YouTube, there are other channels that show how to do that. Specifically, the terrain tutor, Mel, has a bunch of great videos about many different methods for making trees. But I don't do it. I just buy them. Microphone. I often get asked what this microphone is or what the other one I use when live streaming or live games. So the microphone that I use here is a Rhode lavalier microphone. I can't remember the exact name, whatever. It's the one that plugs into an iPhone, but I actually use it plugged into this Zoom digital recorder. It's a Zoom H1, a real cheap digital recorder. And that is how I record the audio for these videos. When I am doing live gameplay or Google Hangouts or a stream of some kind, I use my Blue Yeti microphone, and it is a fantastic microphone. It's just not practical for recording these kind of videos. I will put links in the description of this video to all 3 of those items on Amazon where you can purchase them if you want, and they'll be my affiliate links so I can make a sweet commission on them. Why do you use foam instead of wood or clay for small items like tables and chairs? This is a good question. A lot of crafters build their dungeon furniture like tables and chairs out of things like popsicle sticks, or build little pieces of set decoration with clay. I tend to 9 times out of 10 use foam even on small items. The reason for that is, one, I'm really comfortable working with foam and I always have it on hand, and I like the idea of challenging myself to make anything and everything out of foam, even if it's not practical. But there's 2 other things. One is that clay specifically, and even popsicle sticks and wood to a degree, glued together, if you drop them, they can shatter or break. Foam holds up fine. The other thing is that if I'm doing items that are meant to look like wood, like a table, for example, I think that it's a lot easier to make wood grain at scale, like viewing it on the table, to look realistic in foam than it is on actual wood. Because when you use actual wood, the wood grain doesn't show up. You actually have to dent it and carve it to have some kind of enhanced wood grain, and that's way harder on wood than it is on foam. Because what we're doing with terrain is often kind of like almost like a comic book representation of reality, you have to enhance certain parts of the aesthetic and the look to really sell what it is you're trying to represent. And wood is kind of the best example of that. And I think personally that the most effective way to do that is with foam. That being said, ain't nothing wrong with using the other materials if that's what you like working with. Do you use Hearst Art molds, or why don't you use Hearst Art's molds or similar molds? Again, a couple things. One, I don't feel like spending a bunch of money on molds. Two, I like carving my own things. I mean, that's why I do this hobby, is it's enjoyable to me to create. And while you do still create using those molds, it's kind of like using Lego where someone else has made the main item and you're just putting it together. That's fine. It's just not something that really appeals to me. But the main reason is that I like my terrain and crafts to look like my terrain. I have a certain aesthetic. All the stuff on my table has a certain look, and that look is uniquely mine. Now, because of the work I've done with these videos, that look often gets replicated. So it's not the only stuff in the world that looks like that, but it is the stuff that looks like that first. And that's important to me. When people use stuff using a lot of Hearst Art's molds, that's what it looks like. I can see that and I can spot it. It's a very recognizable style, and those molds become very repetitive when you see them a lot on the different communities. They look amazing, but to me, I don't know, that's always what I see, is that it's a mold, and I would prefer something that's unique and original. Can you make blank, or why haven't you made blank? Insert any topic or, craft. Well, the thing is, there's a lot of different stuff I could build, but I build what I need for my games primarily. So if I haven't built it, it's probably because I didn't need it to play. I build the things that I need. Makes sense, right? Sometimes I make things that people request, but generally I'm only making the things requested by my Patreon supporters because it's my way of giving back to them for supporting me. I hold their requests to a much higher importance than random ones on YouTube. That being said, once in a while somebody just suggests something random and I get inspired by it, so I will make it. But typically asking me to make something on the comments of one of my videos, it's probably not going to happen. If you really want to force my hand at making something in particular, you're going to have to join the Blackmagic Craft Fellowship on Patreon and become part of our little community where we kind of as a group create some of the ideas for my videos. Is a scroll saw good for cutting XPS foam? And this is to mean like instead of a hot wire tool. Now, you may be tempted to cut XPS foam on a scroll saw because it's very similar in a lot of ways to a hot wire table, and you don't want to buy a hot wire table or tool. Yes, you can, but there's two important things to consider. One is that you're not going to get the same kind of smooth, clean, cauterized cut that you will get from a hot wire. It's going to be a rough cut because it's made with a saw blade. And that will depend on the type of scroll saw blade you use, but all of them will be not as nice and clean as a hot wire. But that's okay for a lot of things. The main concern for me is that when you're cutting XPS foam with a saw is that you're creating dust. And like I've mentioned before, the dust from XPS foam is really harmful to inhale. And that is one of the main reasons for using a hot wire tool, is you don't get those fine particulates of dust of, foam embedded in your lungs. So if you want to use an actual saw, be cautious. take the necessary steps to do it safely. The other thing to consider, and this isn't going to be an issue for everyone, but it is for me, is that I craft in the evenings when my wife and my daughter are asleep. Scroll saws are really loud. They vibrate a lot. They make a lot of noise. I don't want to wake up the whole household. I like to casually and quietly craft while watching a movie or listening to some music, and the hot wire is silent. Where is the video about making your game table? Or what are the dimensions of your game table, or how did you build your game table? When I did that video walkthrough tour of my new game room, I mentioned possibly doing a video about my gaming table and how I built it, which was a mistake because I never ended up actually making that video. So if you're looking for it, it doesn't exist. Why not? Well, mostly because I don't want to build a second one, and I didn't quite document it well enough in photographs to make a video because there was no plan. I made it up on the spot in like a couple hours. I just built it. I'm a carpenter, so I have that luxury of being able to just grab a stack of wood and just improvise building a table. I also am not really interested in making a woodworking video. I mean, that is my profession. Well, not so much anymore because I've moved off of tools and into a management role, but anyways, that's besides the point. This is a hobby channel for me, and it's dedicated to showing you how to do the things that I like to do in my spare time to decompress and get away from life and career. And to me, making a video about building a table is too similar to my day job, and that's not what this channel is about. That being said, if you're interested in building something like this, there's a lot of pictures of it on my Facebook page that you can use for reference. And the most important thing to know is the size. The overall size of my table is 5 foot by 5 foot, and the inside lowered playable area is 3 feet by 3 feet, which leaves obviously a 1-inch perimeter all around for people to put their snacks and books and character sheets and all that jazz. How did you make the water terrain used in your ship video, and where is the tutorial for it? Yeah, that's me making another mistake. When I made that longboat video, I said that I would continue on and show how I made the waterboard, and I never did. So sorry about that. That was kind of a dick move. The reason for that though is that that project, while fairly easy, is a big, messy project. And I have no reason to build another one of those boards aside from just for the channel. So I just didn't do it. That being said, I can sum up its build pretty quickly and easily for you here. And I think you could probably handle tackling it for yourself. Essentially, it was just a big piece of blue foam, and I covered it in drywall joint compound mixed with some PVA glue, covered the whole surface. I took a wet paint roller or damp paint roller and I rolled it over the whole surface. That gave it this great stippled wave texture. Let that all dry. I didn't at the time, but I would now recommend sealing that whole thing with Mod Podge, spray paint it blue, and then take some white and do a really light dry brushing just on the peaks to make, wave crests, and then spray the whole thing with glossy Minwax polyurethane. It's really easy. It's basically just textured drywall compound painted to look like water. So experiment with that, and I think you could come up with a pretty decent looking ocean board for yourself. Do you have any videos on blank? Okay, so this is something I don't understand about how the internet works. People watch a video and then they comment or message me asking if I have a video on blank. Wouldn't it be easier just to look at my page? Like, you can click on a channel and see all their videos, there's playlists, and just see if there's a video on it. Enter the search. You would actually have to type less characters if you just entered, say you wanted to know if I had a video about making bridges, which I don't yet, by the way. Rather than going to my Facebook page, finding the message me button and typing out a question about if I have a video on this and waiting for a response, if you go to the search bar on YouTube and just search Blackmagic Craft Bridge, you'll know right away. So I don't get why people message about that. It's weird. Just use the search functions and look, because maybe I have a video, maybe I don't. Now, if the question is, have I ever covered some kind of abstract concept or particular thing that I might not have a whole video on, and you're asking me if it's been covered within another video, that makes sense, and I'll try to remember if you ask me those. But people, Google, search bars, it's a thing. I can't find Minwax or Mod Podge in my country. Will X brand work instead? So this comes up quite a bit. People who can't find those brands in their country, and they message me asking if blank brand that they have in their country will work. Well, here's the thing. If it's like some brand from Argentina, how would I know if it works? I don't have that brand here. So just try it. Just buy some and test it. The only reason I know that the Minwax works or that the Mod Podge works is because I bought it and tested it. I mean, when I figured out the Minwax thing, I had actually purchased 3 different aerosol polyurethanes to test. Another one by Varathane and then one by a brand I don't remember. And those 2 worked horribly. They just aggressively melted foam, but the Minwax worked. The only reason I know is because I just bought some and tested it. So just try. How do you cut out your paper minis and get such clean lines? So, well, I don't really use paper minis as much as I used to, but when I was making them, the way I got really nice cuts was by using a sharp X-Acto, but by also using a pair of small nail scissors or cuticle scissors. I don't know what they're actually called, but essentially scissors where, you know, they're only like a ½ inch long on the cutting blade, so you can get in close and really do detailed cuts. Can you make your tiles double-sided with stone on one side or wood on the other? Yeah, you can do whatever the hell you want. I'm not your dad, just make them. But to be fair, I don't, and I don't because I have no storage issues. I like making tiles and I like having as many tiles as possible, so I like dedicated ones. I also like stacking them where the side is all a continuous aesthetic. But if space is an issue or material is an issue or whatever, you just want the versatility of a double-sided tile, go nuts, man. There's no rules to what we're doing here in this hobby. Just freaking do it. You want double-sided tiles? You can make double-sided tiles. Can you cut EVA foam with a hot wire? Well, here's another one of those things of, I don't know, try it. But I mean, I guess if you don't want to buy a hot wire tool to try it first and you only work in EVA foam, that's a pretty good question. I don't use EVA foam for anything because I'm a terrain builder. I'm not a prop maker. I don't like EVA foam as a material for terrain. So I don't know. However, again, going back to the whole Google situation, I searched it out myself and looks like the answer is no. It does not cut EVA foam really well. Why should you avoid the Hot Wire Foam Factory scroll table, and do you have any videos with a side-by-side comparison? This has been on my list of videos to make for a long time. I do not recommend the Hot Wire Foam Factory scroll table, and I don't want you wasting your money on it. I really want to do a dedicated video showing you why and compare it side by side to the Proxxon. I just haven't gotten around to it. There's always something else that I end up making instead. But the short answer is because it doesn't work very well. It only cuts through material that's very thin. Like it'll cut through foam core okay, like 1/8 of an inch to 1/4 inch thick. But anything thicker than that, it struggles. The wire is too thick. It does not have a variable temperature control. It has a horrible fence that, like, I know the Proxxon's fence is not great, but this, oh man, the plastic piece of junk that the Hot Wire Foam Factory one has, it's just crap. But the reality is that it just does not cut through material. Like, you get a worse cut with that than you will with a dull knife. I am not even joking. Save your money. If you can't afford or you don't want to spend the money on a Proxxon, then just invest in a big pack of Olfa knife blades because they will work far better than the Hot Wire Foam Factory scroll table. Trust me. This one comes up once in a while, and I find it kind of odd when people ask me if I ship to various countries. I don't sell things. Like, I know I'm always talking about my Amazon store. I don't actually sell those things. Like, I don't have a big supply of Mod Podge and Proxxon tables sitting in a shed that I mail out to you guys when you order them. Those are just affiliate links. When you buy things through those links, you're buying them through Amazon or the sellers selling them on Amazon. I'm not involved. It's just that I have provided you with a link that is associated to my account. So Amazon knows that you found it and purchased it based on my referral, and they give me a small commission. So I don't ship anywhere because I don't sell anything. But if you want to buy stuff through those links, it's whatever rules apply for Amazon and if it will ship to you or not. That does make me think of another thing I'd like to address though. People sometimes ask if they purchase through, say, amazon.co.uk, if I still get the commission. The unfortunate thing is that the way Amazon works with their affiliate accounts is that you need to set up a separate affiliate account for every country of Amazon. So I have one for .com and .ca. Those are separate accounts. The commissions are tracked separately. If I wanted to have ones for Spain, UK, Germany, France, all these other countries, I would have to set them up independently, which is a bit of a process, and it involves the taxman in those countries. And also then I have to generate a separate link for each one of those. And Amazon has weird rules about like having to make a certain amount of sales to keep your account open, which I can easily do with .com and .ca, but I never could with like Amazon Israel. So I don't bother. Those are the only two ones that you can purchase from that give me the commission, unfortunately. How do you handle last minute crafts before games? Well, this is one of those things where I kind of lead up to a game and I tend to build the terrain before building the adventure or the story, and I kind of work around what I have, and I try to build things far enough in advance that that's not an issue. But it always happens, you know, despite good planning, that the night before you realize you need something for one encounter and it would just be great if you had it and you don't have time to make it. Those are the times that I do crappy crafts, disposable crafts. The stuff I build on this channel and the stuff that I often build is stuff that I think looks nice enough to sit on my shelf as a display item, something I'm proud of. But sometimes I just need a flame wall for an encounter and I have no time, so I just paint some cardstock red and yellow, cut out a flame, hot glue it to some cardboard, drop it on the table. I have it for the game. It serves its mechanical purpose, and then I throw it in the garbage. So if you're pressed for time, that's when you can just make some quick, easy terrain, and it can just be disposable. What type of mask should you use when using spray paint to avoid, you know, exposure to the vapors? There are a whole bunch of masks. You just have to make sure that you're buying one that is rated for spray paint and aerosols, and you don't want to just be using a dust mask. That's the wrong thing. I myself use one by 3M. They make a whole bunch of them specifically for the automotive industry. I'll put a link in the description for one of them through my Amazon affiliate store. But essentially you can walk into any hardware store, look at the respirators, and just make sure that you're getting one that is rated for spray paint and isn't just a dust mask, and you are good to go. And you definitely should be using one even if you're outside, especially if you're just doing stuff in like a garage. Have you considered using things like glow-in-the-dark paint on your terrain? This comes up once in a while, things like glow-in-the-dark paint or black lights or whatever. I think that's a neat idea, and I think it looks cool in a picture, but the reality is, when you're playing D&D, you got people reading a bunch of papers, rolling dice. You need light, and you set the mood with the light low, but in order for those kind of gimmicks to work, you gotta be in black, and I honestly just don't think it's worth the hassle. I think it is a gimmick, and I don't think it really helps gameplay that much, so I don't bother. I mean, if you want to do it, that's cool. I have no interest in doing terrain like that, even if it's for cool Underdark kind of stuff. What I do want to do though is make a mini smoke machine. That's been on the back of my list for a while. I'm gonna get to that eventually. Are you from Canada? Which city? This I thought was obvious that I'm definitely from Canada, and I'm sure I have mentioned many times in videos and streams that I am from Winnipeg, Manitoba, the actual perfect center of North America, the coldest city on Earth, where we have one of the vastest temperature ranges in the entire world. We go from minus 50 degrees Celsius to plus 50 degrees Celsius in 1 year. We have hot, humid summers and freezing cold winters. We are tough people. It is an amazing place. I love it so much. I'm from Winnipeg. Have you ever considered doing in-person workshops? I've definitely thought about it, and I would love to do it. But I mean, unless a place wants to, you know, kind of pay for me to go somewhere, it's not something I'm going to spend money on traveling to do, because I don't think I can make a profit from it. And I mean, like, I can't get away from my career and my family just to lose money doing these kind of workshops. But hey, if you run a con and you want to have Blackmagic Craft as a presenter, get in touch. Maybe we can work something out. Gen Con, I'm looking at you. Floral form, what can you do with it? Well, you can arrange flowers with it, artificial flowers. That's what it's for. Oh, for crafts, for terrain. For terrain, don't use it. It's crappy, it crumbles, it's really horrible. Don't use it for anything. You can, if you want, use it to make some flocking. Because it's so crappy and it crumbles, you can mulch it up into fine powder and paint it, like dye it green, and then you can have some, you know, grass flocking. But honestly, there's better ways to do that too. So just don't use it. What is your favorite color? Isn't that obvious? You are a musician. What instrument do you play? What's your band? Yeah, I mentioned, you know, my history in music before this channel. So people often ask, you know, about that. First of all, what instrument do you play? I don't play an instrument. I was a composer and an electronic musician. I did everything digitally. I mean, synthesizer, wood drum machines, but people tend to always want to know what instrument. I was a vocalist, whatever. I had two big projects that I did, both of which were electronic, both of which were fairly dark, but in different genres. One of them was called Cake Builder, and it was a breakcore IDM kind of project. And the other one was an electro-industrial, like really dark, aggressive band. And this is where I'm gonna blow some of your minds. And this has happened when it's come up, because the crossover between the D&D community and the industrial community, there's a lot of people who listen to that music who play this game. So I blow their mind when I tell them that me, Blackmagic Craft, your boy Pillipow, is Distorted Memory. I was a fairly prolific industrial musician. I had a fairly successful band in that genre called Distorted Memory. I played all over the world. I released tons of albums. I'm on a current hiatus from it temporarily because I just needed a break from it. But that was what I was doing with my music life. I also did a lot of sound design and soundtracks for short independent films. I'll put a link to one of those films in the description below, along with links to where you can listen to my two bands' work. Fair warning though, if you watch the movie that I linked to where I did the soundtrack for, it has full frontal nudity. Should I tell them it's male frontal nudity? So maybe don't watch it with your little kids around. What is your favorite band or genre of music? That is a question that I could spend an hour-long video talking about, because my musical taste is vast, especially being a musician. Like, I like a lot of stuff. Favorite genres of music are, it's all over the place, but I mean, I have a big background in like goth industrial music, experimental electronic music. I really like soundtrack and scores. I like dark folk music. I like black metal. I like weird experimental hip hop. I like weird indie rock music. Like, I like a lot of music. Yeah, I own a lot of records. I'm a big vinyl collector, and I have a big collection of various genres of music. Favorite bands? Again, there are so many, and I tend to categorize things in my brain of like all-time forever favorites and then kind of passing favorites. I try to discover new bands on a weekly basis, so I tend to have a band of the week in my head and favorites for, you know, periods of time. But in terms of like forever bands that I love and I've loved for like decades and will continue to love till I die, there is a short list of bands and musicians. Number one is going to be Kraftwerk. In my mind, they are the most important band to have ever existed, and I love them with a passion. And if you don't know who Kraftwerk are, you need to educate yourself about music, because they're just really important. Okay. Another band that I absolutely love is Goblin, the Italian progressive band that does or had done soundtracks for most of the Italo horror films, you know, Suspiria, opera, that sort of thing. I absolutely love their work and everything they've ever done. Another forever long time favorite is Skinny Puppy, my favorite industrial band. If you don't know what industrial music is, Skinny Puppy is a great launching point because they were one of the pioneers, a fabulous Canadian band that have been active since the early 80s and are still alive and well and active today. Favorite singer-songwriter, to go a different direction, is Leonard Cohen, another Canadian. I think he is the greatest poet, musician, vocalist, frontman, everything to have ever lived. And my favorite concert of all time, the one that, you know, I can die happy having seen, was him when he toured a couple of years ago. It blew my mind, and I absolutely love his work. Another artist, musician that I really, really love is Mike Oldfield. And probably my favorite album of all time, what I consider to be the pinnacle of music, the best album ever written, which is like a tall thing because I don't think you can classify things as best. It's like a spectrum. But if I had to pick the best album ever, it's going to be Mike Oldfield's Tubular Bells. If you're not familiar with it, you should listen to it. But also you probably are familiar with it without realizing, because the first instrumentation on that album is the theme from The Exorcist, that classic theme that I'm sure you recognize. That was not written for that movie. That was written for the album Tubular Bells, and they just used it because they knew how damn good it was. Favorite beers. Okay, that's my jam. I love beer. I think that's obvious on this channel. First, before I name brands, I'm going to say my favorite type of beer. I am all about the dark beers, porters, stouts, dark ales. That is my jam. That is what I love. I do like a good lager. I hate IPAs and really hoppy beer. I'm a dark beer guy. Now, the actual favorite brands or specific brews, my number one favorite beer of all time is by a brewery called Mill Street, which is a Canadian outfit out of Toronto. And they make a beer called Vanilla Porter, and it is a nitrogen infused vanilla porter that is just like heaven to me. I absolutely love it. My second favorite beer is Blue Moon's Cappuccino Oatmeal Stout. And it's a damn shame that it's my second favorite beer because I can't buy it here. However, one of my players who often makes trips across the border down south will bring some back to me every once in a while for game night, and I am so thankful for it because that shit is delicious. Another favorite of mine is Fort Garry's Dark. This is just a dark ale. This is brewed in Winnipeg, about like 2 blocks away from my house, and this is my go-to, what I always have in the fridge when I buy cases of beer. It's generally this. Everything else I buy is usually singles of like craft beer and just things I'm trying, but that's what I go to the vendor and buy a big box of and always want to have on hand. Thoughts on bourbon? No thanks. Are you planning any tutorials on utility items like dice trays or DM tools? I kind of am in the back of my head. I've been wanting to do a video on a dice tray for a while, as well as various other like DM tools like initiative cards and that sort of thing. It's just another one of those things that I never seem to get around to because it's like I make something for myself and I don't feel like remaking it again. And I'm always hesitant to make those kind of videos because I know that people prefer the terrain. But it's in my head. There will be some of that stuff in the future. Do you have any ideas for interactive 3D terrain? If by that question you mean like terrain items that people can pick up and move and interact with, no, because like I don't like that. Honestly, I don't even like when the doors open and stuff. I think that's an unnecessary gimmick. Terrain is just model pieces that you put on the table to set a certain tone and to kind of be a placeholder for imagination, and everyone knows where they are. Like, they're not interactive toys, in my opinion. If you want to make stuff like that, that's great, but that is something that I am personally just not interested in doing. If you're just starting out, should you start with? Should you start with something like basic tiles or more detailed specific items? If you're just starting out, you should definitely start out with basic tiles. Just the 1-inch grid stone dungeon tiles, make a set of those and just some random like scatter stuff like rocks or pillars, just things you can use to break up sight lines and add some dynamics to a flat room. That is absolutely where you should start, and then you should build off that. But the kind of on the same note, people ask how many of each tile should you make or what should you make? And the answer is make what you need for your first game or your next game. And then the game after that, make what you need for that. And then after that, what you need for that. And eventually you get to the point where you have just about everything you need for any game, and you just get to make fun, cool additions because you already have such a collection already built. But definitely start with the basics. Do you play any video games? Which ones, and do they inspire your DMing or terrain? No, not really. I haven't played a video game in probably 3 years. The last video game I played would have been Assassin's Creed 3. So however long ago that was, it was probably even more than 3 years. I do like video games, but they are a time sink, and I have a very demanding career. I have a wife and a young kid, and I have a hobby that takes a lot of time, and I have a YouTube channel. I don't even have time to watch TV, let alone play video games. I would love to, I just don't. But when I did, I loved Assassin's Creed, and I loved Skyrim like everybody does. But since getting into D&D, I don't think I've played any video games whatsoever. If you could live anywhere in the world, where would it be and why? Well, I already answered this question. I live in Winnipeg, and I could live wherever I want. I mean, it's a free world. I could up and go and risk everything and move. Nothing's stopping me. I really love Winnipeg for a lot of reasons, and that's why I'm here, and that's why I've settled down and made roots here. There's other places that I really, really like and love traveling to, and probably would consider living in. And maybe if I was rich and I could just have any lifestyle I wanted, I would live in some of these places. Specifically Iceland and the Netherlands are two places that I visited that I absolutely love and would not mind for a second living in. But I mean, I live in Canada. Like, I won the country lottery. The rumors are true, man. This is the best place in the world. I love it here. I got no reason to leave. And last question on this long list is, what is your favorite role-playing game besides D&D? And truthfully, I don't play a lot of other role-playing games. My introduction to the hobby was recent, and it was with D&D. I have played other role-playing games, but they were games designed by my friends and peers, and I tested them with them. I played the DMG's 7D system, which I loved. It was great. I had a great time playing it. I played Hankering for Nails ICRPG, and it was great, and I loved it. But my table plays D&D, and other role-playing games besides those, I don't know, because I haven't really played any other ones. So anyways, guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. It was actually pretty fun to make, and if you liked it, and this is something that you would like to see happen once in a while, I mean, I'm not going to replace my channel with these Q&As, but if every couple months we do a Q&A and you like the idea of it, let me know in the comments, and hey, why not drop questions for a future video in the comments below. Also, if you are not a subscriber, hit that subscribe button, because that's what you do on YouTube, right? If you want to pick up any of the stuff that I referenced in this video, I'll put links to the important stuff in the description below, but also head over to blackmagicraft.ca, and there's my essential equipment store where you can buy all the stuff that I use and recommend regularly. Take a look at my Patreon page and consider supporting the channel. It really, really helps, but more importantly, we are building an awesome community around Patreon, and if you want to be able to ask me these kind of questions on a daily basis and get a response fairly quickly, the best way you can do that is by being part of the Black Magic Craft Fellowship through Patreon. Anyways, guys, it's been a blast. I'll see you again next week. Cheers. Yeah, don't worry, I won't tell them about that time when I was like a 14-year-old goth and played Vampire the Masquerade. Like, that didn't happen.